Now let's talk about the Game of the Year winner, Astro Bot. We saw Astro Bot coming away with the coveted title Game of the Year for 2024. There was a stir of drama around this one. So, first of all, let's just give Astrobot its kudos off the bat. This was an extremely complete game, feature complete. Performance ran extremely well, textures high quality, gameplay and experience, DualSense compatibility, all off of the charts. Story cute, nostalgia high. I mean, a lot of great things worked well for Astrobot. Scope, I will say, a little bit on the small size. I think of games like Nintendo 64, Super Mario 64. Scope of that game was huge. We come to PS5 now. It seems like the scope is shrinking, but the textures are increasing. So that would be my one criticism on the game. Other than that, aces across the board, and it definitely was a complete, well-functioning, high-performance game for me.
It's my personal game of the year. There is nothing else that is released in 2024 that has come close to it. It's, as you say, it's a complete release. There is nothing unavailable in this title at launch. It doesn't need a day one patch to work. It has had patches since for some minor things, but they weren't game-breaking or anything. It's incredibly high quality in terms of gameplay mechanics, in terms of the narrative set told, and that narrative is told without a single word of a known language being uttered. That narrative is told through emotional takes on someone's face, on their body, on their actions. Like it's superb, especially to get that through a robot as well that doesn't move like a human can move. It's incredibly beautiful. It pulls you in and stuns you and makes you want to explore in every new level that you visit. And I think the biggest thing for this title that went beyond anything else released in 2024 was it's fun. Start to finish, it is fun. And it remains fun because it doesn't outstay its welcome. It's not trying to hang around for 600 hours because that's what you need to get everything that there is in the game. It's not hanging around for 150 hours until things start to get good. It is around for 17 to 20 hours, depending on your skill level, to get everything done. And you are still having fun at the end of that playtime. And that is such a powerful feeling because there are so many other games that don't do it. Like I said earlier, I'm playing Indiana Jones at the moment and I get bored. I could put maybe 45 minutes to an hour in at a time before the gameplay just gets overly samey and I need to step away. It's a good dip in and dip out game, but it is not a sit in and play it for hours on end. Whereas Astrobot was, you could sit down and play the whole thing in one sitting if you fancy because it remained fun and engaging start to finish. It mixed things up just enough, gave you new things regularly enough. It was just an incredibly well-made title that, in my personal opinion, blew everything else that was released this year out of the water. And for some things, it was only by a little bit. For some things, it was a margin so great there's a gaping gulf between them, but a completely worthy Game of the Year winner. And the reality is, other than the downloadable content in that category, any game that won Game of the Year was going to be a worthy Game of the Year winner. It's just, for once, this Game Awards show aligned with my own personal thoughts as well, and Astrobot took it home.
I heard that comment, and it was much more than DLC. And I will say, as being part of an award show, there is a part of the award show that happens for the companies. You actually, now this happened in cannabis in Canada, so the Game Awards may be different, but you literally purchase the award that you are going to be receiving. And so it is, or you pay money to enter. So it is a big marketing situation here that you have. So be sure to take everything you see with a grain of salt. Like Doragon says, I think the opinion that matters the most is your personal opinion, the games that you find and you enjoy. Just don't take this with a huge thing to go fight people with a pitchfork and sword, because you got to keep in mind that a lot of this is marketing. A lot of this is to push out people's invested time and effort. Astrobot is a
Let's-
console exclusive. To have that as a Game of the Year award kind of shuts out PC gamers, shuts out Xbox gamers, and really pushes people to buy the PS5. And I think that is a strong marketing position. And I would say good move Sony for doing something like that.
And let's not forget, it's one of hundreds of Game of the Year awards. The one that matters probably most to publishers, to developers, and probably the public as well is the Golden Joysticks, because that is voted for by the public. And in the Golden Joystick Awards, Black Myth Wukong took Game of the Year home. One of the British-based ones, it only takes into account British studios and what they have created that year, but Helldivers 2 took Game of the Year on that one because over half of it was developed here in the UK in a UK studio. And you're going to get thousands of these sort of award ceremonies. Some are going to be individual creator-based. Some are going to be publication-based. Like IGN will put out their Game of the Year contents shortly. You've got the BAFTAs next year. You've got Golden Globes are doing a game one soon, I believe. I believe they're looking into it as well because it is the biggest entertainment industry in the world. So just because a game that you like was beaten out by Astrobot at Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards doesn't mean it's going to get beat out by it at every single Game Awards out there. Like, there's already 4 different Game of the Year winners in the 4 that we've had already. There's going to be many different more moving forward.
And so there was some backlash, and we're going to give it from 2 different sources. So Larian Studios' Sven Venkel took the stage at the Game Awards to present the Game of the Year award winner. But he had some choice words to say. Specifically, the Oracle told me that the Game of the Year of 2025 is going to be made by a studio who found the formula to make it up here on stage. He then said it's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps getting lost. A studio makes a game because they want to make a game and they want to play themselves. And he's saying that the studios and the markets have gotten away from that and they're trying to attach these arbitrary sales targets, or they're trying to make games for fear of being laid off. And I think he's just trying to say, make games that you want to play yourself. And I think that's a very powerful message. And don't put too much weight into this, because he's saying an Oracle told him there's a formula to make it up here on stage. And not everyone is going to respond to a formula the exact same way. So just take your perspective to heart, listen to yourself, and play games that are fun for you.
He's 100% right. What a king for getting up there and speaking out against some nefarious and rude and disastrous CEOs. You have got so many. It's why Ubisoft will never win a Game of the Year award, because they just keep pumping microtransactions and arbitrary fetch quests into their games to arbitrarily inflate playtime numbers or something similar. It's why EA are never going to win a Game of the Year award. It's why Microsoft have not yet won a Game of the Year award. It's because they don't make full games. Larian Studios released Baldur's Gate 3 last year, and it was a complete game at launch. It's a very different game now on the 1.9 update. It's a very different game to what launched. They've updated it on player feedback, on balance patches, on information that they've got once it's in the hands of millions of players and so on. And that's a great thing for them to do. But what they launched was a feature-complete, highly polished, excellent experience. It's exactly the same thing that Asobi did with Astrobot this year. It's exactly the same thing that Naughty Dog did with The Last of Us in 2020. It's exactly the same thing that From Software did with Elden Ring in 2022. The games that are going to win Game of the Year awards, he's 100% correct, are where the CEOs have been told to F off, go away, don't talk to us, let us make a game and we'll give you something that will sell. It might only sell in a particular niche, but it will sell really well in that niche, and it will be accepted really well and be up for awards at the end of the year. He's 100% correct. And what a stan, what a king, what a Chad for getting up there and basically bitch slapping the entire industry into line. Class act, Sven DK. Class act.
And there we have, and then after the show, we have some comments from Game Science. So Game Science was these we're talking about Feng Ji, which is the CEO behind Game Science, which believed Black Myth Wukong should have won Game of the Year over Astrobot. He expressed his disappointment on social media, stating that the award should go to a game with the most impressive visuals. This sparked a debate over the criteria for Game of the Year and whether or not graphics should be a deciding factor. It's interesting that he went for that one. I would have gone for overall adoption based on human population because Black Myth Wukong had insane numbers. That would have been my arguing point. Terms of textures and graphics, I mean, on the PS5 side by side, Astrobot was a much more impressively looking and stable game. Black Myth Wukong did have its shortcomings when it came to Chapter 6, felt empty and unfinished. It kind of set off the pace for the game, Chapter 6, and really you expected there to be more to it. It felt really like a tech demo, and anybody who's played Chapter 6 of Black Myth Wukong will agree with that. The end game, fantastic, all the way through, amazing title. The fact that they brought a boss rush game, a sort of game mode into the AAA experience, I think is a great move, and it definitely deserves to be up there and nominated. But hey, it is what it is, and the cards fell, and to me, I feel like Astrobot was a more complete and polished game if it comes down to what he's saying here, graphics, visuals, and overall performance.
His post was on Weibo, the Chinese social media that we can't easily access outside of China, and then you've got to translate it once you've got hold of the post. And there were a few other things that he said, and one of the things was about how many people had bought it. And I'm sorry, but that means absolutely nothing. How many people went to see Avengers Endgame? It made over $1.5 billion at the box office. Didn't win a single Academy Award that year. Did Disney care? Did any of the actors in that movie care? No, they'd made over $1 billion at the box office. They were sat at home counting the money and burning the stuff that they couldn't spend. And that's what he should be looking at. It's like, we had an incredibly successful title. We had such high adoption. We had so many people buy it. It's fantastic. But as you say, there are issues in that game that if you are on a panel of judges for Game of the Year and there is something that doesn't have those issues in that game, if you are judging it on strict criteria, that would place the one without those issues above the one with those issues. Graphics have absolutely nothing to do with Game of the Year candidates. Look at Journey in 2012. An indie title that was cel-shaded, looked like watercolor, absolutely beautiful, but didn't have anything like the graphical fidelity of the other titles up for Game of the Year in 2012. But it won it, and it did so fantastically and very deservedly. The Game of the Year is going to be the game that, in that calendar year, offers players the best piece of art. And that can be from multiple different angles that you're looking at it, multiple different criteria that you're looking at it. And of course, these things are going to have an element of subjectivity to them as well. And he said that he wrote his speech for winning Game of the Year 2 years ago. How blatantly arrogant can you get? You are not better in your first game than people who have been doing this their entire lives. I am sorry to tell you. To have that level of arrogance coming in there and then bitch and moan that you didn't win and you were robbed because you've got a bias about your own game, go grab your dummy off the floor, put it back in your mouth, and come back and talk to us once you've grown up, you fool. That is the only thing I've got to say to that guy.
I get it. You need that kind of hubris to excel to the places that require you to be on top in today's age. You have to be your own cheerleader because nobody else is cheering for you. So I get the hubris. I get trying to be as big and bad as possible. I get saying that you wrote your award speech because that's the mentality you need to have when creating a good game. You need to shoot for the stars. And yes, the complaining and the backlash is, be sportsmanlike. Be more sportsmanlike. Come back next time with an even better game. Learn from your mistakes. But hey, everybody's got their own quirks, and it's a different culture, right? Different like it was probably so well received where he is in his bubble that no other game even existed, right? So
Yeah, yeah. A
it's
lot of China's information is very locked down. They don't see the world as we will see it. So whereas we can get information from people in that situation. So if I wanted to know something about Canada, I'd come talk to you or Ninja Guy. I've got a direct contact, and I have achieved that direct contact through the internet. It is so locked down and controlled in China that they are in an echo chamber. So the only video game that happened this year in China is probably Black Myth Wukong, because it is a Chinese video game. So yeah, I can sort of understand that. And when you're in that echo chamber, in that bubble, you do probably feel like you've got the best chance of winning possible. But at the same time, the rest of the world exists. And if you are going to be dealing with the rest of the world, you need to educate yourself in the rest of the world as well.
for sure.